That is my cat, Zoe. I'm coming to you today from my man cave in the garage. We're going to be talking about Trump healthcare. I know you're going to love it. So we'll see what kind of a audience we get at night. This will be fun. Late night coffee, no coffee. When we get to 500, if we do, I'm going to tell you about what I think is Trump's strategy to get a health care bill. Hello, Denver. Did I submit the comic? Yes, I did. The comic that you all helped me create, I have drawn and submitted already. Peter, you know my garage. Peter Duke photographed me in this very garage. All right, so we're almost at 500, and then we'll talk about healthcare as soon as we're there. Man, you're up late in Florida. Get some sleep. Do you watch your periscopes? I've watched the first few just to see what they look like, but after that, no. Hello, New York. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about healthcare. So let's say you are the master and you're trying to come up with a healthcare bill that's right in the middle. This is just for conversation. Let's say you wanted a bill that was right in the middle between the left that wants too much in terms of what we can afford and the right who wants too little in terms of how many people would be covered. And if you're the president, the only thing that's going to work is something in the middle. But here's the problem. If it's hard to get there, right? How do you get to the middle? All right? If you were to just start at the middle, come back to me, there we are. If you were to just start at the middle and say, here's my first offer, you'd be so far away from the right that they'd say no, and so far away from the left that they'd say no. So you can't start in the middle, right? Now let's say that you started further from the middle in either direction. Let's say you were a Republican, so you start closer to the Republican position. Doesn't have a chance because there's still going to be enough Democrat resistance. So that doesn't work either. And of course, if you tried to pass something that was suspiciously, weirdly close to the Democratic model, the Republican Congress would say no. So you've got three choices, and none of them work, right? That's his problem. So any of you remember the old Star Trek with the Kobayashi Maru, where Captain Kirk beat a contest? There was a simulated contest, and he beat it even though it was designed so you couldn't beat it. And the way he did it was he snuck in and he reprogrammed the computer so that it could be beat. In other words, he cheated, all right? So if you look at the situation and there are three places you can be and every one of them is guaranteed to fail, well, there's not even a slight chance that they could work. If he starts in the middle, both sides hate him, he gets nowhere. If he starts too far to one side, the other side hates him. Can't get there from here. So what's he do? The Kobayashi Maru works like this. You say to your right, hey, you guys, I'm on your side, and I really want to get your input, especially you, Paul Ryan. Put together your best bill. Make it as Republican as hell, all right? He's not saying this literally, but he's allowing them to go full Republican, right? And you notice he put a little distance. He called it Trump. He called it Ryan care, not Trump care. Interesting for the brander in chief to make such a decision, wouldn't you say? So what happened? The right put together their far too Republican plan. They were humiliated in front of the entire country because it wasn't anywhere close to something that would be satisfying because it keeps 24 million people uncovered, and that's just not going to fly. So who gets the embarrassment? Well, Trump. He gets a little, right? But what has he done? He's softened up the right. Now they're a little bit flexible because they tried their way. Didn't fucking work. It failed. It failed with their name on it. It was their best effort. Total failure, right? Now, I know that this is a long process where they negotiate and renegotiate. So we're really talking about the first step. The smartest first step for the master persuader was to let the Republican hardliners take their first shot, make it Republican as hell, meaning it didn't cover enough people, but it did save a lot of money. Make it fail badly in the court of public opinion. Now what happens the next time that these guys have to make a decision? Well, they already know that failed, right? And they know that if they make it worse, it'll fail harder. So where's the only direction they can go? They can either could be complete failures, or they can move to the middle. But what happens over on this side? Do these guys just win because they won the negotiation? No. Here's what Trump did. He let the first plan scare the fucking shit out of them because it leaves 24 million people uncovered. What do you think these people are going to say if he meets them in the middle? Thank God. A victory for us. We got this monster all the way over from here, where it's terrible, to the middle. We win, yay. And so the master persuader, President Trump, has figured out how to negotiate both sides at once. He just had to make one side go first and too far. Now, this isn't the first time he's done this. All right, you gotta look for the pattern to convince yourself this is real. I forget what the topic was, but I've given this exact talk on another topic, and I was right there too. I think it was immigration, actually. So this is what's happening. You're seeing the Kobayashi Maru. You're seeing an unsolvable problem halfway solved. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be solved. A million things could go wrong, and maybe even the middle is impossible. It's possible you can't get to the middle. But there was no better way to negotiate this. And what is the mainstream media reporting? It's a failure. 24 million people won't be covered. What's wrong? His office is in chaos. But right in front of him, he solved the Kobayashi Maru, the impossible, designed to fail problem, and he's halfway done. That doesn't mean it works, right? So I'm obviously being a little more optimistic than the situation warrants for comedic effect. But you could tell me this is some kind of accident. You could tell me he's just sort of hands off, and he let Congress go first, and there wasn't really any leadership, and it was a total screw up, and maybe he should have been, and maybe he should have handled it differently. And that fits all the facts. Like, that fits your observation. That filter on reality totally works. Fits all the facts. But you know what? So does mine. Mine fits all the facts too. And if you look for the pattern, you'll find out that the master persuader idea fits the facts pretty darn well here. Well, yeah, it's too early to declare victory. Now, did I also give you, I can't remember if I did this. I think I did this only on YouTube. But here's how you pay for healthcare and get enough people covered and meet in the middle. All right? I'm going to solve this for you right now. This is based, stop me if I've done this before. I can't remember if I did this on Periscope yet. So let's say costs, if nothing happened, the cost of social services goes up like that because there are more retired people and everything's more expensive. And so over time, your cost goes up. Now the problem is that in order for us to have a budget that is at least somewhere within striking distance of balancing, we're pretty short because our revenues are going to be like this. So you've got this big hole here that you can't plug unless you leave a bunch of people with no health care or do other terrible things. But I'm suggesting that, and by the way, for years I worked as a budget analyst in big corporations, and this is how we solved the impossible budgeting problems. You do it with smoke and mirrors, with a little bit of grain of truth to it. So if this were me, I'd say, yeah, we're going to spend a bunch of money that we don't want to in the short run, right? So here we're going to spend a bunch of money we don't want to. We're going to make the deficit worse, but we're going to encourage startups that will lower the cost of healthcare by getting them funding, getting them attention, just sort of shining a light on them. Don't manage them. You don't want the government managing anything. You don't want them regulating. You don't want them funding because they're less efficient than someone else. But you do want them to just shine a Trump light on the topic. You saw what it does to keeping jobs in the United States, right? When he puts the Trump light on stuff, all kinds of energy happens. So imagine what would happen with literally hundreds and hundreds of medical device and other types of startups that will completely transform the cost structure of healthcare. If Trump says, here's my budget, I'm going to break the bank for 5 years, but at the end of those 5 years, we're going to have some really good shit. We're going to have healthcare like nobody's ever had healthcare. We should be able to get to the point where you could do a digital doctor, where it's, Watson, the computer, IBM's computer does your diagnosis, can even read your x-rays, do all that stuff. Better than a doctor. I think we're at the point we can do that. So you could have an alternative where you cover the 24 million at a very low cost, but they don't get 100% of what everybody else gets. They don't get to go to the doctor just because they want some human contact. But they might get just as good service. It would just be low cost because it's a digital kind of thing. And then you'd have a minor injury clinic that did the Band-Aids and stuff. So have I solved healthcare? So Trump has scared both sides to the middle. So that process is done. Now he needs a story that makes the middle make sense to both sides. It has to be a new story. Here's the important part. It has to be a new story because they've both so publicly, consistently rejected all of the other stories. So one of the stories is, let's spend too much. Reject. Let's not cover enough people. Reject. All right, so you need a new story. So how about the story is, we're going to break the bank for 5 years, shine a light on all these medical startups so that we can lower this expense line to where our revenues are so that we don't have to raise taxes. All right? Now, whether or not you can do that, whether or not it's true, and I think it actually is true. I think it would actually work because I've seen a lot of startups that are, reducing within their area could reduce costs 90%, right? For just whatever problem they're working on. And there are a lot of them, and they're all coming online pretty fast. Yes, they are the best. So, tell me what's wrong with my idea. Give me some idea tell me why this won't work. Why would it not work to cover everybody and just say we're going to drive down the cost of healthcare and create a digital doctor service, have it up in 12 months? Peggy Noonan had similar thinking last, when was that? I'd love to see that. By the way, you might know that I have referred to Peggy Noonan as a master persuader. So it would not surprise me a bit if she's thought in similar terms. What if a serious recession happens? Well, it's always a problem. I'm not sure how that relates to this question. How to get this info to Trump? Well, I'm fairly confident that there are enough Trump supporters watching my periscopes, and I also said the same thing on YouTube, that people in at least the outer circle are getting it. And if an idea is good enough, it will go wherever it needs to go. So I have this philosophy of ideas being essentially viruses, and that we should treat them that way. By the way, all right, I know this is going to get me in trouble. For those of you who stayed, you're going to get a bonus idea that's a little more provocative than what I usually do in here. So watch me lose everything I have by going a little too far. All right? So with the, let's say the terrorist problem. So we got this terrorist problem, and too many of them are from, say, radical Islam. And we'll distinguish this from just people who are, this little subset of people who are problematic. But I think our problem is that we treat them like a physical problem, when we should, meaning, about humans coming over and blowing things up. And I think it would be better to treat them like a virus. They just happen to be an idea virus. And this is very different from other ideas that we allow into the country, right? So we're very happy about our country that I have drawn wrong. Sorry, Texas, I forgot you, the little cow udder at the bottom of the country. So we're very happy that we've got all kinds of diversity and different ideas and different people. And I do think that legitimately makes the country a stronger country, because diversification in almost everything works out. But not all ideas are equal. Some ideas are more like a virus. And I would say that terrorism, radical Islamic terrorism in particular, is more like a virus. And if I told you that, let's say, North Albonia had a virus outbreak that was deadly, and they didn't have a way to detect who had it yet, by the time you find out you have it, you die, and it's easily spread, how would we treat that? Would we say, no, we must treat the Northern Albanians exactly like we treat everyone else, because that's who we are. That's our national character. We don't play favorites. We treat everybody the same. But you wouldn't do that with a medical problem, right? If you had an actual virus that, if somebody left the country, it could spread to the rest of the world and cause a pandemic, you would just quarantine. And this quarantine would be terrible for all the people in Northern Albonia who don't have it, right? Because not only do the terrorists stay home, and that's probably not good, but they might get it, because and they can't leave, right? And so it's a terrible situation for the North Albanians that some of them get a deadly virus because they get quarantined. But nobody complains about it being wrong, right? Like when you hear it, no matter how bad that sounds, you still say to yourself, it's better than the alternative, which is everybody dies because they get out. Now, analogies are never perfect, so you can't make decisions based on analogies. I'm just explaining that if we were to treat the idea of radical Islamic terrorism, if we were to treat it as a virus, a quarantine would make perfect sense, right? And you could say there's a lot of it in these countries, or these countries don't have good vetting systems or whatever. But as soon as you change the frame from religion, which I think is a huge disservice to Muslims in general, because whatever percentage of Muslims who are just minding their own business, trying to raise their families, stay out of trouble, they get painted with the same brush, just like the North Albanians would if there was an outbreak of a virus in their country, right? But it's easier to stomach a quarantine with an actual physical virus than it is for let's say a mental virus. Now, you might say to yourself, but there are plenty of bad ideas and bad people, and you can't start saying some are bad and some aren't, because then you don't let anybody in, and it's just mind control or thought control or something. But here's the thing. I think you could come up with a definition of an idea virus that would be both objective and that people would generally agree with, right? So if, for example, you said the idea of the KKK is an idea virus, I would say it's not. And you know why it's not? Because it's not spreading. If anything, it's moving in the other direction. It's sort of like a self-curing problem. So, and let's say you said Nazism in the year 2017 is a virus. that needs to be stopped. I would say it's not really very viral. It doesn't seem to be growing, really, unless you think Trump is a Nazi, I suppose. But there are lots of terrible ideas that don't have any viral capability. Now, one of the things that Islam has built into it is the fact that if you leave the religion, if you're in a fairly extreme believer, I guess, they might kill you. So that's the definition of an idea that's viral. The idea that your friends will kill you if you don't go along with the idea, right? So anywhere you find that quality, where people will be killed for changing their mind, you could say, well, that's the definition of an idea virus. So all you have to do is find places where that's a prevalent feeling, that you would be killed for leaving, and by the way, this terrorism stuff looks pretty good, and you'd say, all right, that's an idea virus, so we'll treat it differently than other things. But you'd have to be careful that you're not making it about religion, you're not making it about the Muslims who are just minding their own business. Why not inoculate? Well, one thing you could do is kill anybody who converts to Islam. I'm not suggesting that, but it's probably the only way you could. It's probably the only way you could stop it from growing. So, and again, I'm not suggesting that. I think also there's a way to create an antivirus idea. And I'm sure that the government's working on it because the commander-in-chief is the master persuader. So they're working on how to persuade ISIS now, if they weren't before. I hope they were before, but you've been reading my book. Can't you convince someone from another ideology it would be wrong to kill for an idea? That sounds like an attempt at reason, and I don't think reason will ever get you there. Weed as an antivirus. Yeah, so you need another idea. So you need kind of another virus idea that was a stronger virus that killed the other virus. And I'm pretty sure that our CIA is working on stuff like that. French Revolution was a virus. Was it? It didn't really spread past, well, maybe it did. Yeah, I guess it did. I was going to say it didn't spread, but apparently it did. You're right. Christianity was more viral. So you have to ask yourself, but I don't think Christianity ever had a "will kill you if you leave," but it was probably just as bad. Probably if you left, nobody would buy stuff from you, nobody would hire you. Did the CIA ever ask me for help? Well, that's a trick question, because if they did, I couldn't tell you, right? So my answer is no. But it's a worthless answer because, anybody would lie to that question, right? You'd have to. Oh, it's a no. It's a real no. I'm just saying that, it's one of those questions that you can never trust the answer. Yeah, shunning is the same as killing. You're right. Am I going to save mankind? I'm working on it. I think we've made great progress in the last month. Could I ever get top security clearance? Oh, that's a good question. Probably not. No comparing a few cults to the billions of Muslims. Yeah, that's why I did not do that. very carefully. I think that's the punchline. Yeah. Will you ever meet with Trump? Well, it's not up to me. So how would you convert Muslims to Christians? Well, I wouldn't bother. I think all you need to do is convert people away from the idea of killing people. They don't really need to change religions. So, yeah, I think the topic is too big for this Periscope. Has Tucker invited me on his new show yet? No. How much coffee? Way too much. No, I think you can change any ideas if you put enough energy into it. All right, I think I'm gonna go because I think I've said all I need to say. I've solved healthcare, and that's enough for one day. All right, take care. Oh.